You want to build a keyboard, and that's why you clicked on this video. I'm going to share with you 3 simple planning processes for building a custom keyboard while trying to stay on a budget. So here's how it's going to go. First, you're going to have to think about what the purpose of building your keyboard is going to be. Whether it's for gaming, or maybe just a better typing experience, or just for cosmetics. There are different reasons why you want to build a keyboard, so it may affect on what kind of keyboard you might want to get. Next, you need to consider what your budget is going to be. Your keyboard could be as cheap as $10 to hundreds of dollars. So knowing your total price range will definitely help narrow down what kind of keyboard you're willing to build. So once you decide your purpose and price for your keyboard, next is just designing and what color scheme you want your keyboard to be. Maybe you have a specific material of keyboard that you're looking at, or a specific design of keyboard that you envision. So now let's dive deep into what your planning process is going to look like. I'm sure you asked yourself what your purpose of building your keyboard is. And personally, I wanted to build a keyboard because I thought it was really cool. And by all means, we have the option to buy a common gaming keyboard from Razer or Corsair. But in my opinion, common gaming keyboards are a little too expensive compared to the quality of the builds. So then if gaming keyboard is not something you're really looking for, then maybe a custom mechanical keyboard is your go-to. And with the rise of popularity with mechanical keyboards, there are so many great options of pre-built keyboards. You have Keychron, Epomaker, Acco. There are so many great options and at a great price. But then you might be wondering, why not just buy a pre-built rather than building one yourself and go through all the trouble and complications? And that's true. There are great mechanical keyboards at an affordable price that you can definitely go for. But making one yourself is a lot of fun, and being able to customize the material, the sound, the feeling of your own keyboard is just satisfying. So once you decide to build your own keyboard, here's one thing that you should consider, and that is the price to looks ratio. I'm sure that if you're on a budget, then you may want to consider which part of the keyboard you're willing to spend more money into. So let's look into each component of a keyboard and see how you should consider your pricing. First is your base keyboard, and more than likely, it is the most expensive part of your keyboard. Then you're likely to decide what size keyboard that you want. The sizes are 60%, 65%, 75%, 80%, or 10 keyless, or 100% or a full size. Generally speaking, there is no price difference for different sizes, so choosing what size you want is 100% preference. Then, to help narrow down your shopping trip, maybe you can think about what color your keyboard is going to be. Maybe it could be black, white, or some other color in between. It's important to consider that the keyboard is the base or the outline of your keyboard, and more than likely, the driving force of the price of your keyboard is likely the material of what it's made out of. A lot of times, keyboards are made out of plastic, but sometimes keyboards can be made out of metal like aluminum or maybe wood. The bottom line is the material will affect the sound that the keyboard resonates when you type. So it is important that you gauge the price to the material of the keyboard because it may heavily affect the sound. Once you decided your keyboard, you're next going to look at your keycaps. Generally speaking, keycaps are on the cheaper side, but just like the keyboard, if you decide to buy a keycap that is made out of expensive material, then the keycap will also be expensive. But most of the time, the keycaps will either be made out of ABS or PBT plastic. So unless you really want a specific material for your keycap, then you probably don't have to worry about pricing that much. What you do have to worry about is the looks, the colors of your keycaps. Most of the time, keycap sets will have a certain color scheme or design. So honestly, just find whatever you think looks good. And finally, the most important aspect of your keyboard are the switches. If the keyboard is your skeleton and the keycaps are your skin, then the switches are your muscles. Switches change the sound and the feeling of your typing experience. And it comes down to 3 different choices: linear, tactile, or clicky. To keep it short, linears are smoother and quieter. Tactile is snappier and gives a bump feedback when you press it. And clicky is just like the tactile, except it will purposely make a clicking sound when you press it. And generally speaking, the pricing between the 3 types are not really different. So it comes down to you researching and figuring out what type of sound and feeling you might want for your switch. And trust me, there are hundreds of sound test videos on YouTube of different switches, so you don't have to worry about finding what's the best for you. So now that you decided what keyboard, keycaps and switch you want to have for your keyboard, all you have to do is just order it and build it. And honestly, that's the easiest part. Bim bam boom, throw it together and you're good. Now, there's one additional thing you can do to your keyboard that will make it 100 times better, and that is modding. And modding your keyboard is not really complicated. And in my opinion, there's only two types you really need: lubing and tape modding. Lubing is the most common type of mod that people like to do on their keyboards. And it's essentially applying some lube in your switches and your stabilizers. And what it basically does, it reduces friction between the contact points of your switch and acts as a little dampener for whatever makes a sound in your keyboard. And you can easily find guides on how to specifically lube switches and stabilizers. Now, tape modding is a little life hack that is super easy and cheap to do. All you need is a little painter's tape, and you just pry open your keyboard and put it on the underside of your PCB, the little electrical board for your keyboard. And all it does is dampen the sound and make it a little deeper and poppier, which makes your keyboard sound 100 times better. So that's it. That's how you build a keyboard. It's not super hard, and unless you go into minute details and customization, that's all there is. So I hope you find this video informative, and if you have any other tips on building your keyboard, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.